A little while ago, OM System, through their website, were offering the 17mm f1.8 prime lens at more or less half price, and I succumbed. But I found out why a little later, because they've just issued a Mark II version. So this program, this survey, is about the Mark I version, not version 2. Mind you, I'm very pleased with it. You could say it's a real lens because when you move this ring down, guess what? The depth of field scale comes into view, so you have the choice of accurate manual focusing. Anyway, I confess to keeping the camera, which was the OM5 incidentally, on program, on automatic focusing, and I handheld all the shots you're about to see at 200 ISO. Now, I'm not cropping any of the pictures. They are taken in the 4:3 standard format, but where I've had to straighten some buildings, for example, in Adobe Lightroom, then through that process, you're going to lose a little bit of the image around the images. So let's go, shall we, and have a look. It is not a lens for landscapes, even with the benefit of a modest wide angle. 17mm in micro four thirds, 34 in 35mm film. In my Hasselblad days I was used to working with prime lenses, but an 80mm focal length, which is standard in medium format, was easier to work with. It was beneficial in tight street corners, provided you had the place to yourself, but its real benefit is, as you can see, St Mary's Church, just down the road, where f1.8 really came into its own for handheld, low-light photography. Photographers occasionally disbelieve that shots like this are handheld, but the OM5 has image stabilization like no other camera to the extent that it sometimes amazes me. However, the shutter speed here was 125th of a second, which any reasonably fit person should be able to handhold without camera shake. I spot metered the window, allowing the rest of the church to become underexposed, corrected in Lightroom, as I had saved to RAW, making it easier. This technique might be essential because what you cannot see is everyone else. Answer: don't visit on a bank holiday, for which I blame my friend Richard, but he is an excellent host and driver. I had practiced earlier at Wallingham, and at a 40th of a second it seems to be sharp, but greater tests were on the horizon. Notice that I have underexposed by a whole stop, as camera exposure systems are not always accurate at recognizing black, even when spot metering. A trip to Canterbury was on the cards, staying overnight. I have already published a program about my trip, but I thought a bit more detail related to this lens would be helpful. Again, I spot metered the shot window and corrected in Lightroom, and if you saw the image out of camera, you would probably chuck it away without a further thought. Yes, I do make mistakes. The cathedral was busy, so my first shot was of the nave's roof. Unfortunately, I had left the white balance on daylight, but as I had saved the RAW, it was easy to tone down the warm hues in post-production before creating a working JPEG. I archive the RAW file with corrections in case I change my mind, and I am very good at that, as true art never stands still. There was a mixture of light inside the cathedral, and artificial light tends to warm the colours, looking unnatural when viewing the image. Here there is a mixture of both, and much careful post-production was essential, even after correcting my earlier mistake. I hope it looks okay. This is a bend-over backwards job, and at 80 that becomes increasingly difficult with an expected outcome. But I survived. I could have placed the camera on the ground, but with many other people around, that was problematic. Quite a bit of straightening required in Lightroom, which was successful using the sliders. Normally, I would crop the Bell Harry Tower to the centre. With a bit of patience and artful positioning of pillars, I can remove other people, including a school party seated behind the main pillar. There is very little excuse these days to have overexposed windows inside a church. Modern technology in camera and or software makes it easier than a few years ago, so take your pick, but it does require practice and experience. I am peering through this highly elaborate screen that separates the nave from the choir. The Star of Bethlehem was being displayed for Epiphany, and there were still people about. It wasn't really necessary to underexpose by a whole stop, probably a legacy of the last shot, but that could be corrected later. Suddenly, and usually whilst your back is turned, there is nobody in the choir. Over the years I have learnt to handhold and get the shot without thinking about it. In a scene like this, intuitively I spot meter with post-production in mind. In this case, the highlight above the star. You can spot meter by half depressing the shutter button of the OM5 and other OMD cameras, which will be kept by maintaining a light pressure on the button before moving the camera to the required composition for the shot, which you have worked out beforehand. Yes, I know that I haven't got time for that, but it was worked out earlier when other people were about, so that I knew what to do later. By now it was, nearly dark outside. The cathedral floodlit. I rather like the warm hues, a perfect ploy to the sky, which I admit to lightening a tad in post-production, having ensured that during photography it was as close to black as I could achieve. So, there you are. Whether it's Mark 1 or Mark 2, I think this is a fantastic lens. Now, as you may gather, I am not a technician, but I hope that I am artistic, and I owe my technical success to the OM5, the image stabilization within that camera. It is absolutely fantastic, and the way I handhold the camera and take the picture is very important. It's quite simple, quite unscientific. I breathe in, take the picture, and breathe out. One of my friends suggested one day that in addition to doing that, I should take the picture, press the actual shutter button between heartbeats. Now there's a good tip for you, isn't it? But I think he was pulling my leg actually.